CJ Moneyway Show. And I'm with your host, CJ Moneyway. Let's get it.
What's up, my good people? Welcome to the CJ Moneyway Show. Today we have a young lady who is both an enthusiastic baker, a dedicated yogi. She has brought her banking expertise to various contents. Please welcome Far to the show today. How you doing, Far?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for introducing me as young lady. I haven't been told that in a very long time. So that's always good.
Hey, you look like a young lady, and we're all young in spirit. When you say that you was enthusiastic, about what you're doing, that's a young woman's spirit right there. So before we get started, Far, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background?
Sure. So your listeners will hear that I'm not from America. At least the accent is not. I'm sitting in Dubai as I speak to you. I was born in London, and then when I was 4 years old, my mom took me to India, where she was from, where Parsis ethnically, which is Persians. And we went back to India when I was 4. We were meant to go just for a holiday to see my grandmother, but ended up staying there and growing up there. So I lived for the next 14 years in India. And then when I was 18, I had to make a choice because there wasn't the dual nationality. So I had to select based on passport where I wanted to stay. So I chose to go back to London when I was 18. And then in 2001, I located to Dubai, and I've been here ever since. So a little bit of a citizen of the world, traveled a little bit, seen people, seen places, can find my way around most sort of socioeconomic situations, if you like. But yeah, kind of that's all of it has gone into making me the person that I am.
Okay. And so on a side note, so how hot is it there today? Well, we're in
oh my Lord!
degrees?
Today, okay, so you're doing Fahrenheit and I do centigrade. So just bear with me while I tell you what we're at. So we're 34 degrees, but that for you need it in a different. Hold on, I will just tell you. We are 94 degrees today.
Wow, 94. So, that's air conditioner day.
Yeah, walking the dog is a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a bit hot and humid. Yeah.
Hey, I don't know about you, but I'd rather be hot than cold.
That is true. That's probably why I've stayed here all these years. I'm not a big fan of the cold, and I get cold really easily. So yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, definitely rather be hot than cold. But up here in the Northwest, we get a lot of cold days. So you began your career in banking at the age of 18. Can you share your experiences in the banking industry and the places it has taken you?
Sure. So my entry into banking was, again, sort of out of circumstance and not necessarily choice. I wanted to actually become a doctor. And then when I left India and came to London, there was the whole, we hadn't been in the country paying tax situation. So there were no grants available, and my mom couldn't really afford to pay for me as an international student to study medicine. So it became a situation of I had to find a job and, become a little bit self-sufficient. So I found a job as a trainee in banking. Literally, that's where I started, filing, making coffees, learning, sitting, taking notes. And I built my career from there. So that started in London. And then I took a little bit of a detour across some trading. I did some metal trading. And then I found an entry back into banking. And that sort of was the start of my slow and steady climb, if you like. So London, then came to Dubai, multinational sort of banks, and worked my way through the various departments. And then because I'd acquired this sort of wide base of skill sets, it sort of takes you into a business management route unless you want to do sales. And while I was in Dubai, I had the really great fortune to work on some transactions that took me to Egypt, took me to Zimbabwe, stopped off in Zambia, so the Victoria Falls, and mainly Dubai and UAE, the Gulf region. And I'm still here and still in the field.
Man, that's a mighty long time, and that's a lot of things you have been through your journey. So with banking, like how you know what I'm saying, because you've been in it so long, like what's the difference between banking when you first started and to where it is today?
I think where I first started, and I started out in private banking, which is very focused on the individual and that relationship. It's very relationship driven, and whatever the customer needed. I remember one particular customer was doing up their house, and they were out of the country, and the tiles were being delivered, and I, went to their home to take delivery of the tiles because that was the relationship we had with the customer. Whereas today, it's more about data. It's literally about analyzing a customer's preferences through the algorithms and the data we see. You profile your customer through numbers rather than getting to know them over a cup of coffee. And I think also the nature of banking, the private banking is for the very niche, sort of very ultra high net worth individuals, whereas perhaps the sector where I'm in is not necessarily that niche, but is more driven by volumes. And when you see a customer preference or you see a trend, you can pick it up through the numbers, and then your energy and your focus goes in that direction. So today, for me, it's all about, because we see it everywhere, right? It's the algorithms. I kind of think even when you apply for jobs now, I'm probably getting discounted because my experience started that long ago, and I'm almost thinking like I need to start taking the years or the dates out so the algorithm can't figure out how old I am. Because I'm sure they're like discounting, going, she's not the young lady that CJ said she was. She's not making it to the cut. So I think it's a lot about numbers today and data points and analysis and, just all of that sort of stuff rather than the very personal touch. Gone are the days where you walk into a branch and you have a cup of coffee with the branch manager and say, how's it going? It's a very different model today. You can bank, on Amazon, you can bank on Google, you can bank your financial transaction, you can do on any platform.
Oh, okay.
So it's a different world.
Yeah, of course. Exactly. We live in a different world. So could you explain what you mean by embracing the different facets of your identity?
So I get Dubai is such a multicultural country, city where people come from all walks of life. And typically within the first 5 minutes, people will try to identify you and figure out where you come from. So then, they can, it's about creating alliances or finding points of similarity. And when I get asked the question, where are you from? It's always a tricky one for me to answer because I feel I'm a composite. I am Persian and I'm very proud of my heritage. My value system is Indian, purely, the whole duty, responsibility, respect the elder, look after the family, the children, never really leave the nest, that kind of value system. I worked in London, so my corporate culture, my work ethic, or even a bit of my humor would be British. So it's very difficult for me to say, oh, I'm English, or oh, I'm Indian, or I'm Parsi. I'm sort of a composite of all of that. And to explain it is never a short, pithy drinks party answer.
Yeah.
So I think it's allowed me to understand different types of people because you see all shades of people in different countries. You understand different cultural nuances. You understand the drivers for value systems, if you like. Like I understand the Indian value system. I understand the British value system. I get the differences and I can straddle both, but I have a preference for myself and how I want to be and show up in the world. But I get it. And I've lived in Dubai, which is this amazing melting pot for 20 plus years. And I've been exposed to different people from different walks of life here. So you acquire a sense of the sameness and yet the differences we all have.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds very interesting. You do got to stick to your core values and the things that, like you say, I got, although I've talked to different people and I meet different people, I know who I am and what I try to present to the world. And that's what we need, more people that, that's true to themselves. So, so what are some of the challenges that you have faced in your life up to this point?
Oh wow, that's such an open-ended question, and there's so many answers one can go through. So, if to be super again true to yourself, or to be honest with your listeners, because that's the platform you're creating. It starts from childhood, right? It starts from displacement, moving from London to a small town in India with no context and no emotional vocabulary to make sense of what was going on and what I was experiencing around me as my mother was separating from my father was possibly the first, challenge, shall we say. Then my parents divorced, and it was a long drawn out divorce. It wasn't an easy or a quick one. And it was also because my mom was divorcing in a small town in India back 30, 40, 50 years ago. It was not the done thing. It was, it raised eyebrows, fingers were pointed, we were different, she was different. So I was the daughter of someone different. And so I got, I was brought into the limelight, not through anything I'd done, but because I was her daughter. And mum was this very larger than life character. She trained as a lawyer. She was dating a person younger than her in town when she got divorced, who was a very eligible bachelor. And she walked around town smoking cigarettes, wearing trousers, which again, in today's day and age, you wouldn't bat an eyelid. But in that time in India, it was not, nobody else was doing it. So she ruffled feathers, shall we say. So it was all about finding where you belong, because I'd come from England. India was supposed to be a holiday. It extended. It was never, in my mind, home at that point. I was always waiting to get back to London. So it was finding where I belonged, or not feeling like I belonged, but still, operating on a day-to-day basis. And then when I turned 18 and I got the chance to go back to London, it was, here was my dream. I wanted to be a doctor and I couldn't. So it was the challenge of the dream you have doesn't match the reality of the situation. And finances require you to find a job. So it was, in a way, if you believe in the universe spirit, I was being guided to where I was meant to be. It just wasn't what I had planned for myself.
Yeah.
So it was, resisting the change and yet being forced down a sort of a path that was meant to be the path, I guess. So it was that. And then finding myself back in London. I thought I was from London, but I'd been away for 14 years and I didn't belong there anymore. So you come back and you're like, okay, how do I navigate this society and this social sort of culture that I hadn't been around? And learning corporate culture, which again, I hadn't experienced in India. It's a very different way of being, interacting, your emotional reactions, how you deal with politics, just the whole thing, right? Navigate the world there. So that was challenging in a way. And then I got married. We moved to Dubai. And then the next massive sort of life-defining challenge was the loss of...
People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Terms and conditions apply. People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Terms and conditions apply.
My mother, she was the victim of a petty crime in India, and as a result of the crime, she was shot and she lost her life through wounds as a result of that particular gunshot. And that was huge. And that sort of, I'd only ever had the one parent around. My dad hadn't been really present in my life. So for mom to not be there was your foundation gets ripped out from under you, and redefining and rebuilding yourself and finding your feet again, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And then life sort of goes on one day at a time. I had young children, so, they keep you going, but you still have to wake up and you still have to get them to school and still make breakfast and, all of that. Career challenges aside, and then I got divorced at a point, which was another very life-defining moment. And it was in the same week that my ex-husband filed for divorce. I also got made redundant from the bank I was working with at the time. And it was a loss of identity. It was, normally you rock up somewhere and people say, who are you? I'm so-and-so, I'm married to, this person, or I work here and this is my designation. But now when you don't have those defining sort of titles, if you like, who are you for the person, and how do you present yourself and how do you introduce yourself? So it was a challenging time to find, if you like, my strength and who I was, and to re-ground myself. And then you get past that, and then the challenges just keep rolling and they keep rolling.
Yeah, wow.
I just got an email over the weekend, and it's another challenge from the ex-husband. You just think, wow, and I think for any listeners out there wanting to get married, test your values. Your values have to align. It's just when your values don't align, it's very tricky. It's very tricky.
It's funny that you say that, because I've interviewed a young lady not too long ago, and she created a card game called Dating Assassin, and the game is actually like for couples that's not married yet or just in a relationship to get to know things about each other that you probably wouldn't talk about, in the long term, and give you a sense like, do I really?
That's a red flag.
Yeah. Do this really match up? So, talking about your mother, what you said to me sounds like she was a trendsetter. She was doing things that was uncommon. So, what are some of the valuable lessons that your mother taught you?
I think bravery and courage to stand up for what you believe in. So the incident where the gunshot occurred, she was challenging people. There were these young men who had, in India, there's this thing about, they call them roadside Romeos, where guys just make lewd comments at women and think it's acceptable to, voice sexual innuendos, or for women to feel threatened or sexually predicated. So my sister-in-law had come out, and these youth who were standing there said something. Mom didn't hear what they said, but she could see my sister-in-law's reaction. So she got out to challenge them. Like, why did you say something? Why do you think it's okay to say something to a young lady? So she stood stood up for what she believed in despite threat to her own personal safety. So I think it's always standing up and using your voice when you see something that you don't agree with or you think is wrong. She lived life large. I don't know if I've absorbed all of that lesson, but it was very much about be who you are. There will always be people who will talk, who will judge, who will have negative things to say, but you can almost drown out that chatter. As long as you're being a good person, you can stand up and own your actions, then just be true to yourself was a big one that I learned from her. She loved people who were different. She was always attracted to the outlier, not the mainstream person, but the outliers would flock to her and she would, embrace them. So it was always about seeing the beauty in someone who someone else might not consider, mainstream beautiful. And just being authentic and true and loyal, extremely loyal to her friends, a great friend. Some really great lessons. Food. She loved food. She loved fashion as well and jewelry. And just the nicer things in life, if you like. She definitely passed on that love to me.
So, mom's a trendsetter, tough, brave. Speaking about your mother, let's go one step farther. Can you talk to us a little bit about your memoir?
Thank you. So I've written the memoir Meher and Me. My mother's name was Meher, so it's really honoring the legacy of my mother and paying homage to her. And it's about, someone said to me on one of the podcasts, it's not really about how she went in the end, but it's about her whole life, right? Because for a long time it was about how it ended. But it's to honor the person that she was in her entirety. And obviously at the heart of the story is how she did pass, which again, there's so many messages in of that, right? It's about personal safety. It's about women being able to feel safe in a country. It's a message to the leaders. It's a message to the young men of today to respect women. There's so many sort of messages in that one interaction incident that can be used to guide people forward. But also the book is a story about hope, right? We're all going to suffer loss. We're all going to face those challenges, some of them which I talk about in the book. But it's you can come through them. You can make it through with a little bit of help, a little bit of whatever, you find works for you. And it's a book about, I think, hope overall and parental relationships, which all of us have, right? Those are our starting relationships with our parents.
Mm-hmm. And so where can we find this book at? Is it on Amazon, any other major?
It definitely is. It's on Amazon. It's on all the major sort of retailers, online retailers. And if you go to my website, farapress.com, there's a link. You can click on the link and buy a book. And I hope your readers like it, and I'd love to hear their feedback and any thoughts that they have once they've read the book.
Oh, okay. Just one more question about your mother. So how was your relationship with your mother growing up? And do you still believe that your mother is watching over you right now?
Definitely watching over me. Growing up, I think it went through a journey. So starting off, obviously, when you're young and you can't say no and you have no voice, it was fine. And then as you become a teenager and you start challenging the authority and you start questioning everything that happened, it was a little bit tricky. And mom was going through her own stuff at the time. She was divorcing my father. She had met my stepfather. She was navigating that relationship. And I was not making it easy, shall we say. So it was a bit tricky. And then once I turned 18 and left, and there was the distance, and there wasn't the immediacy of, FaceTime or Zoom or any of that. It was the 3-minute phone calls or long handwritten letters. It wasn't even emails or texts or any of that when I left home. And I think that distance helped, and because in a way I was finding myself as well. And I was becoming the person I was becoming. And Mom, because she wasn't there physically next to me the whole time, whenever we did meet, she would see the difference or the change in me. And then when I got married and I had my daughter, it sort of is full circle. It's the daughter of her daughter. And then she said, your children are great, but the grandchildren are interest on your principle, and they're that much dearer to you. So we became incredibly close as I had gotten older, become independent. And, I would say we were friends. She would talk to me. I'm her firstborn. And she would say, there are things she could say to me, and we were connected in a way that was very, it's not something that you can explain. There was a connection that transcended every other sort of relationship that there was.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, I know what you mean about relationships. Sometimes, like as you said, when we get at each step teenager, then we think we grown, we start challenging things, we think we know more than our parents know, and it was an old saying that there's nothing new under the sun. So what has already been done. What people doing now has already been done, but we think that we have figured something totally different out, only to realize that maybe mother, father was right, about what they were saying, because like you said, as we grow older and mature and have kids and a family of our own, we start seeing some of the values that, was presented to us at an early age. And then we find ourselves talking like our parents. And once you realize certain things, I think it brings a stronger bond between child and parent. Because I've been through that myself. So yeah, I'm glad that you shared that with us. So far, can you share with us your dreams for the future?
There's always dreams. There's always more, right? So I love baking, and friends call me out and say that you've been talking about it for a while, but I have also been working to pay the mortgage and uni fees in the meantime. So, I can sort of justify that. But I would love to have a cafe. A cafe by the beach is kind of my dream. Maybe a yoga studio next to it or above it or something like that. That's kind of the dream. And I don't know if that's a post-financial services retirement plan. But that would be cool. And I'd love to see the book as a movie. I really think it's very visual. I think it could make a great story on so many different levels. And I'd love to see it on the screen.
Oh, okay. Speaking about the book, before we get ready to end, what is the one thing from the memoir that you would like for the readers to take from there?
So when we talk of challenges, right, I also do believe we don't get challenges more than we can actually deal with, right? We're never given more than we can carry. So I think it's about readers looking within to realize they have the strength within them. If they're facing a challenge, to know that something in them is being brought to the front, some hidden strength, and to take away the belief that they can get through it, and they will come out the other side and maybe share their story to help someone down the line with how they overcame their challenge.
Yeah, pass it forward. So, and then I'd like to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your experiences and everything. Is it anything else that you have on the horizons that we can be looking out for? Anything else that you would like to share with us before we leave?
Nothing specific. I'd love to do a cookbook maybe with the recipes, but check out Instagram, Farah Press, whatever I'm up to, I post there. So hopefully your listeners can follow and join me on the journey.
Okay. Well, I'll be following you starting today.
Thank you very much.
Coming on the show. Hey, you have been listening to the CJ Moneyway Show with my friend Far. Hey, go check out the books. You want to turn it into a movie? Let's get her to that point. Let's try to do as much as we can to help her out. Even though she's in Dubai with 94-degree weather and we're sitting here in the 67-degree weather, we still gonna show her love. It's your boy CJ Moneyway. We out. Peace.
Woo!
People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Terms and conditions apply.